Hello, everyone. Welcome to our training today, How to Crush Your Goals in 2024. So I'm really excited to offer this training. Happy New Year. Welcome to January. A new year is always a great time to wipe the slate clean, to set some intentions and goals, to turn a new chapter, turn a new leaf. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Whether or not you set some intentions or goals in December or in early January already, that doesn't matter. We're going to be, if you haven't set your goals yet, we're going to be working on that as well today. But if you have already set goals and you're just here because maybe you're curious about how to supercharge those goals and how to really achieve them quickly, or maybe you're here because January has come and the holidays are over and it's dreary and all of a sudden like life is back to normal and you're losing steam, you're losing motivation, and your goals seem further away and you get lost, you start to doubt yourself, whatever the case may be. So if any of those things are happening with you, don't worry. That is what we're here to address today. We're going to orient and reorient your course now so that this year can be absolutely amazing for you. So sounds great. How are we going to do that? So today we're going to learn how to crush your 2024 goals in 4 simple steps. And I'll get into that in a second. These 4 steps, this is the method that I use on myself. It's the method that I use with all of my clients. And bottom line is that it works. So ideally for this training, you're going to want to have a pen or a pencil, a piece of paper handy. We're going to do a couple of exercises together. So it's nice to have that available. You may also want to take notes. The other thing is, if you don't have that available, that's okay. You can watch the recording. You can also, use your laptop or your computer in order to do whatever it is that you need to do. So don't worry if you don't have a pen and paper. And finally, stay tuned to the end of the workshop and the training so that I can give you guys some free goodies at the end. So, okay, without further ado, let's get started. I am going to share my screen here. Alrighty. Let's get this presentation in presenter mode. Okay. Here we go. All right. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alana Shaked. I'm an executive and lifestyle coach, and I help professional, career-driven women create balanced, fulfilling careers and lives. I started out as an attorney at a big law firm. That was my first career. And while I was working at that big firm, I ended up suddenly being diagnosed with breast cancer when I was in my 20s. And that was a huge shock to me. It completely changed my perspective on what I wanted to do with my life, with my career, and how I wanted to have better work-life balance. As an attorney at a big firm, I was working crazy hours. I really wasn't taking care of my own health and wellness, not to mention other things like relationships and priorities that I had in life. So, yeah, so once that happened to me and once I made it through all of those treatments, I transitioned my career into nonprofit management, including founding my own nonprofit for other breast cancer thrivers. And I worked in that area for about 7 years until I got married. My husband and I started trying to start our family. And unfortunately, the treatments that I had undergone during my cancer experience caused some infertility issues. And so we ended up going through a lot of fertility treatments. So I currently now have, hang on, I'm just going to let somebody into the Zoom room. Hi, Patricia. Welcome. I'm just getting started. I'm letting people kind of join in as they come. So feel free to use the chat. I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to take notes or anything, it's great to have like a piece of paper and a pen handy for this training. So welcome, and I'm just going to keep going for now. We have a couple other people joining a little bit late. Okay. All right. I'll just give the same Hi, welcome, Gail. I've already gotten started here, but I just wanted to make sure, if you guys have a piece of pen and a paper handy, that will be helpful to you. So yeah, we just got started. So you haven't missed anything yet. So, and feel free to write in the chat any questions that you have. We'll have time for more questions at the end as well. Okay. So I was just introducing myself. If you don't know me yet, I was just kind of talking a little bit about my career changes that I've had and wanting to live a balanced and fulfilling life, and how that journey has kind of led me to the career that I have now. I have a 2-year-old daughter now through IVF, and I'm also 8 months pregnant right now. So you may see me taking a couple of deep breaths or like a sip of water or something during the training. Um, so why am I here today? Why are we here today? So, one more person to let in. Okay. All right, here we go. So, why are we here today? So, if you're on my email list, you might have seen my email recently that was about enjoying the journey and not just the destination. And it's kind of funny because when you think of goals, it's all about the destination. And we are not here to promote that type A workaholic personality today. That is just, there's a place for that, but that's not what this is about for me. For me, going through my journey, my cancer experience, all of those things, it really led me to understand that life is short and that it's really not just about achieving goals. It's about being in the moment and being present and enjoying and reaping the benefits of those goals that we achieve. And in the email I sent out, I kind of explained a little bit about how the reason that we still want to set goals and then work on achieving them is because it can be difficult to enjoy the journey of your life if you have absolutely no structure, right? So my purpose is that I want to inspire others through my authentic voice, and that's through writing, through speaking, all sorts of things. How am I going to do that if I don't have an audience to speak to, right? So there's different things that we need to focus on in order to make it easier for us to facilitate our being able to enjoy the journey. So that's why I'm here right now. And I would love it if you would let me know in the chat, like, why are you here today, so that I can do my best to address that in today's workshop. So let me know, what you're hoping to gain from this training. Why is it important to you? Oh, no worries, Patricia. There is going to be a recording. But yeah, let me know let me know in the chat, like, why you're here today and what you're hoping to get out of this. And again, I mentioned this in the beginning. I know some people joined a little bit late, but let me know. Have you already set some goals or intentions for the year? If not, that's okay, because we're going to cover that today. Maybe you've already set some things, but you just want to kind of like supercharge those things. Maybe you're just curious about what it is that I'm going to say, or maybe, you've kind of come into this having lost a little bit of steam. It's like December, we have the holidays and it's so wonderful, and a lot of people have time off, and we set these wonderful goals and intentions, and then January comes and life happens again, and it's kind of cold and dreary, and we start to lose steam and motivation, and we get lost, and then we kind of just give up, and the self-doubt starts to really creep in. So just go ahead and let me know where you're at today so I can make sure to address that. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into these 4 steps that will help you to crush your goals in 2024. So step 1, let me just move this. I've only got one screen open and there's just so much going on here. Okay. Step 1 is that you need to make sure that you have clear goals. So I tell this to everyone, and this is my favorite analogy, but like, if you were trying to get from point A to point B, literally like in a car, you would kind of need to know what address you were trying to get to. Like, how could you how could you use Google Maps or like a navigation system if you don't have that address, or, whatever kind of navigation you use. So it's really important to have clear goals, and not just clear goals, but clear aligned goals. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Step 2 is you have to believe that you can get there. If you don't believe it, then, it's very, very unlikely that it's going to happen. Step 3 is that you have to know what to do in order to get there. You need like an actual intentional strategic plan. Like, what actions do you need to take in order to make it happen? And then step 4 is that you have to do it. Okay. You have to actually do the plan, execute your strategy, even when things change or it feels tough. So it's pretty simple. We're going to just break these down one by one. So step 1, what I was talking about is setting clear goals. And again, why do we want to do that? Well, first of all, there's evidence to suggest that when you have clear goals, you're much more likely to achieve them. It takes away the guesswork, it takes away wasted time. Thinking again about the Google Maps analogy, if you were using a navigation system, it's going to give you the most direct route. It's going to take you around, if there's any kind of like traffic or detours or closed roads or whatever. Whereas if you didn't have that destination put in, you're kind of just going to be ambling around. You may get lost. You may encounter different roadblocks. So it saves you time, takes away the guesswork, and honestly, it just makes you feel better. When you don't have a clear picture of what it is that you want out of your life, you feel less aligned, you have more self-doubt, you feel disconnected from yourself. So having these clear goals is going to help you feel connected to yourself, connected to your values, and in alignment with your life, which is really going to ultimately increase your level of fulfillment, of happiness, of just feeling good. Okay. So, I like to use the SMART goals framework. I think, it is evidence-based. Not everybody uses this, but I think it's really helpful. It doesn't always have to be exactly based on this, but I just want to kind of explain what the framework looks like and show you guys how this can be really helpful to you in terms of setting your goals. So SMART goals, again, it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Many of you may have heard of this, but I just want to kind of give you an example of what that means. So I'll share some of my personal goals with you guys. So let's just start with number 1, right? Like, I want to get published in 3 publications by December 31st of 2024, at least one of which is national. So this is pretty specific. I've mentioned that I want to be published in 3 publications, at least one of which is national. Okay. It's measurable because either I'm going to get published or not, and I'll know that looking back. I think it's pretty attainable. And, I've gotten published before. I love writing, and then it's relevant. I mean, this is my passion. I absolutely, like I mentioned, my purpose is that I want to share my stories, my inspiration with others to, inspire and help them. And I'm extremely passionate about certain topics in the women's health area. So this for me is like super relevant. It would be like really in my wheelhouse, in my zone of genius. And finally, I've put a timeline on it, so it's time bound. So just kind of explaining what those 5 elements would look like in here. Okay. So what I want to do with you guys right now is I want to start with with the relevance factor, because in my opinion, that's actually the most important thing. If you are not connected to the goals that you're setting in terms of it being like really aligned with your identity, with your values, with your priorities, with your soul, it's not that you can't achieve those things. It's just that A, you're probably not going to enjoy the journey as much, which was the whole point that we talked about in the beginning. And B, it does really make it harder because you will lose motivation, you will lose steam, the self-doubt will creep in. So it really is important to start out with making sure that you are choosing goals that are super aligned with your soul. So, you know, another example of this that I'm just going to give you here is like the second one. So I want to lose my pregnancy weight after I'm done giving birth, and I want to get into really good shape because I have a genetic issue, the BRCA1 gene, and so I have to have my ovaries removed later this year. And the reason that this is so important to me is that health and wellness are 2 major, major values of mine. And I want to feel really good and vibrant in my body. I want to be able to enjoy my life. I'll be going through, early menopause. And so for me, this is like a very aligned goal. I want to like have the energy to enjoy my kids. I want to, not experience bone loss, whatever it is. So it's really important to me to really kind of focus on my health and wellness after I give birth. Okay. So what I want you guys to do right now is, oh, thanks, Gail. I will try to respond to you soon. I see your private message. So thank you. So I want you to do right now is to imagine that you have like a magic genie or a magic wand, and I want you to brainstorm a dream list. So we're just going to take like maybe 5 minutes to do this, but basically what I want you to think about are there any milestones or situations that are coming up that you already know about this year? So for example, I know that I'm going to be having a baby in like a month. So that sort of helped me to kind of like set my goals around, okay, I know that that's happening. And so I know that after that, I really want to focus on my health and wellness. So maybe there's a wedding, starting a new job, a big trip that you have planned with your family, but any milestones that are happening this year, you want to think about those in terms of like your potential goals. Um, are there any things that are not on your calendar yet that you would really like to see happen in this next year? So think about those things. And, think about like getting to December 31st of 2024. So we're fast forwarding, 11 and a half months. And I want you to think about looking back on the year and what would make you feel really good if you were looking back on that year. So if you had this magic wand and there were like no barriers to what it is that you could wish for here. If you were to look back at the end of the year, what would you have want to accomplish? What would you feel really grateful for? So, again, think about what's most important to you. Try to connect with your values and desires, and don't be afraid to dream big. Even if it seems unreasonable, we'll kind of address that in a minute. Right now, I kind of just want you to brainstorm this. So, Anne, if you're there, go ahead and take a few minutes. I'm going to do it also. And just brainstorm, what these magic dream list goals could be for yourself this year.
Hi, sorry. I thought I just saw the people. I wish there were more people here for you. You're so
I
wonderful.
know. Well, there are
I
a
was
couple of
walking
people who
back and
jumped on and off,
multitasking.
and
Oh,
yeah, so I'm
well,
recording it to make sure that
oh,
we
okay, okay,
yeah, that everyone who
okay.
signed up
All
gets a
right.
recording of it. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, you're so wonderful. So, um,
Thanks. Yeah, I'm so
I'm
happy
walking
you're
back from
here.
something. Thank you. And
Oh, okay. So if you're walking and you can't do the exercise,
um,
maybe just kind of like think about it in your head. Or
mhm,
you can do it later. So yeah, I'll just, you know what I'll do since we're recording this and since you're
yeah,
walking, I'm
uh-huh.
going to keep going right now.
That
And
sounds great.
what people can do if they're watching the recording or if you're doing this later is you can just pause at this moment to allow yourself to do this exercise. So instead of having a time limit here, we'll just like allow people to kind of, you can pause the recording and do the exercise. Okay.
Great.
So basically, all right. So what you've done at this point is that you want to have, sorry, just a second here. So you've brainstormed this amazing dream list, okay? And some of these things may be like totally outlandish. Some of them may be totally possible. Some of these things are going to feel more exciting to you, less exciting to you. So what I'd like you to do is look at that list and then you're going to underline the 3 things on the list that feel the most meaningful and urgent to you. Okay? And this is where I want to mention the attainable aspect. So if one of your dream goals in 2024, one of the things that you'd love to see happen is like, I want to end world hunger and have world peace, or I'd like to, win the lottery. Okay. You know, these are, or, my favorite example is like, as a little girl, I always wanted to be an Olympic figure skater, and I'm 40 years old now. Like, that's just not in the cards for me. So what you want to kind of look at is, all right, so these are all my dreams. That's really great. which of these could potentially be attainable? And I do want you to think big here. So like I want people to push themselves out of their comfort zone a little bit. But again, like if there are things that are just like you're not going to be an Olympic ice skater, you know, maybe like winning the lottery, like that's just completely out of your control. I wouldn't unless you are the kind of person where you're like, that's my goal and I'm going to buy like 100,000 lottery tickets. So, yeah, so that's what I want you to do now is kind of underline those three things, make sure that they're attainable. Again, a stretch is okay. The worst thing that can happen is that it fails, and that's no big deal. And then what I want you to do is just circle the one thing that feels the most meaningful, the most urgent, and the most potentially attainable. So it's not that I'm limiting you to one thing, it's just that we're going to focus on that for the purposes of this workshop. So whatever you've circled, let's go with that. And then what I want you to ask yourself is a couple of questions. And again, I urge you to kind of write this down with like a pen and paper. But I think it's really important to really, really check in here about the relevance of this goal and connect to your purpose and your why. So ask yourself, like, why is this goal something that's meaningful or urgent to me? What will it give me? And how will I feel once I've achieved this? So you might want to pause the video here again and just take a few moments to answer these questions, to address these things for yourself. Okay. And that's really the hardest part here is figuring out what your soul aligned goals are, the relevance factor. And there's many other exercises that you can do to uncover like what that looks like for you. And again, at the end of this training, I'm going to, mention a few things and hopefully be able to send you guys a few resources. So, now let's just go back for a second to the S, M, and T aspects, right? Specific, measurable, and time bound. So again, what you want to do is once you have that, like the goal that you've circled, the super relevant, like I would just be so excited if this happened this year, like it's so aligned for me. You want to try and set some parameters to the extent possible. So think about like, are there numbers that you can include in here? I didn't I didn't like put the numbers about the pregnancy weight, right? But like theoretically for myself, I know what that number is, right? Or so it can be a little bit harder. Like we just moved to Portland, Oregon, and we are going to need to buy a house this year, right? So when I say buy a house that we love and that suits our needs, okay, that's not super specific. But part of that is because we have to sit down and identify, what are the things that we love and that suits our needs about a house. So creating that list is going to be an action item for me. And I did kind of put like a time measurement on that. So again, think about numbers, think about ways you can make it specific. Think about deadlines that you can put in here or like where you want this milestone to happen. And think about ways to make it measurable. So like, for example, with the house, either I'm going to buy the house or not, like I will know whether or not I've bought the house. So it's something where it's either a yes or a no. It can be a little ambiguous sometimes, like sometimes goals are not quite as measurable, but to the extent possible, if you're able to make them measurable, it will just kind of help you have a clearer strategy to getting there. So, okay, so that is basically step one, which is setting clear goals. I see, oh, awesome, Anne. I'm glad you're back home. Yeah, feel free to share in the chat, like if you have any goals that you want to share. If you have like a SMART goal that you want to share for the year or anything like that. I know you didn't have a chance to do the exercise, but if there's something that you want to mention, and then we can kind of like use that as a template for what's coming up in the rest of the workshop. So, okay. So the next piece of this, I don't know if you guys watched Ted Lasso, but I love this show, and he's all about the mindset, right? And so the number one reason that I think people fail in achieving their goals is that they just simply don't believe that they can achieve them. whether that is, I can't do it. It feels impossible. I'm just not good enough. Like maybe there's some imposter syndrome. For me, I don't have enough time. Like I was, really, I had like a crazy week last week where we had a major ice storm. I had to cancel everything. And then I thought about my goal of publishing 3 articles this year. And I'm just like, between being pregnant, having a toddler, having this ice storm, and working, like, where am I supposed to write these 3 articles that I'm super passionate about? And I had those self-doubts, those thoughts that crept in. I don't have enough time to do this. Maybe I'll do it next year. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Fear of failure, just like I really like this idea of the goal, but like I'm so afraid that I'm going to fail that I'm just not even going to try. Or maybe just like feeling a little bit wish-washy still about the clarity that you have about the goal. So just feeling like, since I don't have this perfect idea of what it is that I want to do, I'm just not going to do anything because I don't want to make a mistake. Or that might be true, for example, if you're like thinking of starting a business, which seems like such a big prospect. And so, a lot of people feel like they need to have it all figured out before they can get started. And so they kind of just don't move forward with things at all because they're afraid of making a mistake. And similarly, in general, just the need to be perfect, perfectionism is a mentality that can really hold us back. So, again, you have to believe that you can achieve your goals in order for them to come to fruition, or at least in order for you to put yourself in the best position possible for them to come to fruition. So what I'd love for you to do is to just take a moment. And again, you can pause this if you're watching the recording, but I want you to write down the self-doubts, objections, blocks, and obstacles that you foresee in achieving your goal. So it might be something on this list, or it could be something else. But I want the first step in changing your mindset is really just to have awareness of like, what are these thoughts that I'm having that are causing me to not believe that I can get there. So just take a moment to do that. And Anne, if you want to write anything in the chat, I can like sort of personally address those for you and use them as an example. So it's totally up to you. Let me just see, oh, you're muted. And also I closed the chat. Okay, there we go. All right. Yes. Oh.
Chat or did chat speak? What's better for the recording? Or
either way, it's up to you.
I
like
switch
if you
to
want
my computer and put it whatever. Yeah, maybe I'll join from my computer. It'll be easier to type if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thanks. So I'll just keep going for a little bit. And then once you join back in, you can type in the chat and we'll sort of go back and address stuff. Okay. So what I've pulled up here on this screen is a tool that I use with all of my clients and on myself constantly. And it's just basically, I call it the mindset map. Many other coaches use this framework, but basically the idea is that we have control over our thoughts. And by controlling our thoughts, we can actually change the results that we get in our life. So that's good news, because that list that I just showed you and all of these like obstacles and things that you've thought about, that you've put down on a piece of paper now, at the end of the day, they're really just thoughts and beliefs. And, you may be aware of them, you may be unaware of them. They could be authentically yours, or they could be things that you picked up from society, the media, parents, things in your childhood. And basically the way that it works is that, circumstances are sort of like the neutral facts of what is going on or what has happened. And then those trigger all of these thoughts and beliefs about the world that we have. And those thoughts and beliefs cause us to feel a certain way. So, if I think to myself, there's no way I'm going to have time to write these articles, then the feelings and emotions that I'm going to have might be like disappointment, overwhelm, frustration, stress. Okay. And then that emotional state is going to cause me to either take an action or not take an action. So it could be that I postpone writing the articles because I just feel too stressed out about it. I don't want to get started. and lose steam, whatever it may be. So actions can be like things that we either do or don't do. And then our actions directly impact the results we get. If I procrastinate and don't write that article, then it's not going to get published. So, and then of course that becomes evidence for all those thoughts I had. See, I didn't have time to do it. So basically what we are trying to do here is to break this negative cycle. And the way that you can do that is that you do not necessarily have control over circumstances, but you do have control over the thoughts that you have. So what I would like for you to do, first of all, is recognize that the things that you wrote down at the end of the day, they're just thoughts. And that's even if they're true, okay? Like it can feel really true. Like I do not have time to write an article today. I just don't, right? It can feel really true, but it's still a thought. And by recognizing that, you know that you have the ability to decide whether or not that's helpful to you or hurtful to you. Okay. So once you do that, you can just, once you decide, okay, this is not helping me, you can decide to choose a different thought. Okay. So you can choose something that is also true, but creates more of a positive or neutral emotion. So it could be a challenge to the original thought. It could be some type of affirmation. But really the key is that it has to feel true to you. If it doesn't feel true or authentic, it's not going to work. But I encourage you to like push yourself a little bit. Like you want the emotion to be at the very least neutral, if not positive. And if you get stuck, the best way to do this is to flip your thought into a question. So for example, I really feel like I don't have time to write this article. Okay. And it's really pissing me off and I'm really upset about it. What if I just say to myself, well, could I find time to write this article? How could I find that time to write this article? Okay. That is not something where I'm like violating my truth or, discounting the feelings that I have that, feel really true. It's just me opening the door to another possibility and generating a different emotion, which is like maybe contemplative or thoughtful. Okay. So that's one way you can do it if you're feeling stuck. All right. So any of the negative thoughts that you wrote down, what I'd like you to do, either Anne, if you want to do it now, or if you want to pause the recording, at least one of those thoughts, I just want you to practice like coming up with a statement that's either neutral or positive that shows you how you can start to address that and change your mindset. And while you do that, I'm going to just look at what Anne put in the chat. So your 2024 goal is to draft a children's book with illustrations. That's so freaking awesome. My why is to combine parenting, illustration, and passion for social emotional learning. And some limiting beliefs are that I've tried before and it didn't go anywhere. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I've tried before and it didn't go anywhere. So, obviously the thought that's kind of like hidden in there is, since I tried before and it didn't go anywhere, I'm worried that that's going to happen this time. And then maybe there's some subsequent thoughts that come up. Well, if that happens again, I'm going to feel so upset and I'll have wasted so much time and, blah, 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 blah. So, and if you want to put in the chat, like, were you able to kind of, come up with either a neutral or positive thought to challenge that limiting belief about like what has happened in the past is, going to happen again in the future? And again, it could be just as simple as, just because something, this time may be different. Or I love this one, like even this is kind of that fear of failure, addressing the fear of failure. Like even if it fails, it could still provide me a creative outlet, even if it doesn't get published. Yeah, I mean, I know people who've also like self-published things. Yeah, exactly. And your why is that you want that creative outlet for yourself. So, I think that these thoughts are like very, very positive. And I also think that it is totally possible that you could write an amazing children's book that could get published, right? So This is about just opening that door and not allowing these thoughts to kind of hold you back. Okay. So, the third step is about creating a plan. So now that you have like a clear goal, now that you have, you're connected with your why, you've sort of at least started to look at what some of the obstacles and blocks are that are coming up for you mentally and start to create more of an empowered and success mindset. What you need to do is create a plan. Like, okay, so Anne, you want to write a book. I want to write some articles. How am I going to do that? Right. So what you want to do is write down all of the things that you would possibly need to do in order to make that happen, and just be super broad. Like, it could be things that are, like one-time tasks. It could be things, like I need to like write a draft. Then I want to have like an editing process. Then I want to, show it to some friends and get their feedback on it. So, anything, maybe I need a new computer because my computer is like breaking down, and like in order to write these articles or this book, like I'm going to need that, or I need to buy drawing supplies for the illustrations. So, you just want to kind of get everything down. You can think also in terms of like milestones and then work backwards. So like, what are the steps that I would have to take in order for this to happen? Some of them you may not know yet. Like, you don't know yet if you're going to get engaged in a process with like a, like a, not a book dealer, a book agent, or, like a publishing company. So there may be like additional actions that you need to add as things move forward for you. But you really kind of want to like think about like, what are the milestones that are happening, and what are all of the things here that I need to do? Well, who are the people that I need to talk to? What are the connections that I have that would help me achieve this goal? Then you want to try to prioritize these actions. So just because you brainstormed a bunch of actions doesn't mean that you have to do everything that's on the list. You want to be very strategic and intentional with your time. So I always talk about the 80-20 rule, which is, doing the 20% of the things on your list that create 80% of the results, or at least putting those first. So you want to look for the low-hanging fruit, the easy wins, the most important things, the things that are like directly related to you accomplishing the goal. So if I want to write an article, I must actually draft the article. If I want to write an article, do I need to spend 10 hours researching the article? Maybe 5 would be sufficient. Maybe 3 would be sufficient, right? So there are other tasks that may not be quite as related directly to the end goal that could be kind of like wasting your time and holding you back from moving forward. So you really want to pick the things that are like very directly connected. And then if you have time for some of those other things, or if you feel like they're really important, you can add those in. But don't let, a bunch of like, I need this to be perfect, I need to do all of these different things, stop you from moving forward. And then finally, you want to use your calendar in order to make sure that you intentionally create the space and the time to do those tasks. So research shows that when you use your calendar, even if you need to move things around, even if it doesn't end up happening the way you want it to, like literally last week, I had to cancel everything on my calendar because of like an act of God. So that happens and it's okay. But when you sit down at the beginning of a week and you kind of intentionally think about, how long are these things going to take me? Where would be a good place for me to put this in my day? Can I fit these things in my week? Then you just increase the likelihood that they're going to get done, as opposed to a situation where you get to the end of the week and you're like, what happened? What did I actually accomplish here? So those are the 3 things you want to pay attention to in terms of your action plan. And what you can do right now, Anne, is just think about, what is one thing that you can do this week in order to move towards your goal? So just think about like one step, one action. And by the way, that action could be self-care. I want to mention that I'm a huge advocate of self-care. Like, I can't write an article in flow in the way that I want to write it if I am so exhausted and overwhelmed that I just like don't have it in me. When I sit down to write something, I need to be in a very like creative, expansive space. And so if I'm not taking care of myself, that's not going to happen. So it could literally be that the one thing you do this week is related to self-care. But try to come up with one thing you can do, and then think about like, when am I going to do this? So put it on your calendar, or think about like, I'm going to do this on Wednesday, afternoon at 2 p.m. And that will kind of just like get you started. So, the last step that we're going to talk about is actually implementing the plan. So you have this awesome goal, you want to write a book, you feel like, yeah, I can do this. And even if I can't, it's okay, because this is what I'm meant to be doing right now. And you have a plan of like, okay, I want to write, I want to get a draft done by the end of the month. So I'm going to spend like 3 hours a week, working on it. And then I'm going to go, to the art store and buy some coloring things. And I'm going to spend like, an hour this weekend, like just doing some like fun drawings. Okay. Whatever it may be, you have your plan. And then you get sick, your kid's school gets canceled, you're tired one day, you just don't feel like doing it, whatever it is. Right. So you actually, and some of these goals are like long term. Like I'm talking about something that's stretching out all the way to the end of the year. And so is Anne, right? So the idea is that in order to keep ourselves motivated, we have to really kind of like check in frequently. So the first step here is just reconnecting with your why periodically. So whenever you're feeling like you're losing steam, really coming back and connecting to your why. I should have put self-care on this list also, so I will amend that. But I think also just like, yeah, checking in about like your self-care and where you're at in terms of that. Problem solving. So like if there is a roadblock that comes up that's like a legitimate roadblock, doing your best to figure out how you can get around it, and how you can pivot. And if you feel like you can't, then ask for help. It's really important to get help, to get support. There's a lot of people who have been on this journey who may have accomplished what it is that you're trying to accomplish, or maybe just someone who can be supportive of you. Maybe it's a partner or a friend. Don't be afraid to ask for help. When things are hard, if you get a rejection from a publisher, or it just, I submit all my articles and it's just like, I'm just not getting responses, have some self-compassion. Like, these goals are, they're attainable, but that doesn't mean that they're easy. And so, sometimes the struggles that come up on the way can really make us feel bad. And that's okay. You just want to kind of give yourself the compassion that you would give a friend who's going through that. And that's going to be healing for you and also help you to move on eventually from that. And then finally, of course, you want to have accountability for these goals. That's, again, evidence-based. The more accountability that you have in terms of achieving your goals and, going about your path, doing your strategic action plan, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to achieve that. So one thing you can do today to create accountability for yourself is to share your goal. When we share our goals, it doesn't mean that we have to achieve them. If I don't achieve any of the goals that I showed you guys today, well, what are you going to do? You're like going to hate me or something, like it's okay. If we, so it's not about creating stress for yourself. It's just about sharing with people in a way that like, once you put it out there in the universe, it's real. And also you might be surprised. People might contact you and be like, hey, let me help you with that. Okay. So for example, Anne, you have like an amazing Instagram platform where you like post all of your beautiful images and cards and things. Like it could be really cool for you to share. And again, this is a big step, but it could be really cool for you to share with your Instagram group, with your followers, that, hey, like I have set a goal this year and I'm going to be writing a children's book and I'm really excited about it. So it could be that you share it on social media. It could be that you just tell a friend. It could be that you just wrote it in this chat, or if you're watching the recording, it could be that you're just emailing it to me. Whatever it is, any way that you can like externalize this goal is going to create a little bit of accountability for you. So go ahead and pick somebody that you, or people that you can share this with. And after this training is over, I want you to actually, figure out a time this week that you're going to actually do that. So either text, email, call the person, post online, whatever it's going to be. Okay. And then of course, with accountability, investing in your goal can be huge. So, um, like when you hire a personal trainer, it's just, it creates that accountability where you're like, okay, I'm actually going to show up for these workouts. I'm actually going to work hard during them. You want to put your skin in the game. That's going to increase your likelihood of success. So that can come in many forms. It can be like a professional coach, but it can also be an accountability buddy or a group of people that you can be accountable to. So like a mastermind group, your partner, a friend, a family member. You could create a reward system, like, as you achieve milestones, you get like certain little rewards based on that. I'm not a huge fan of like punishment, but I have actually seen people, punish themselves for not reaching a goal. I think the funniest thing that I heard about was there was like a little accountability group that I wasn't part of, but I heard about this, where if they didn't do what they said that they were going to do each time they met, then they had to donate like $25 to Donald Trump's campaign. So yeah. So apologies if you're watching this, whatever your political affiliations are, but I'm just giving an example of like, ways that you could create accountability. I'm more of a fan of positive reinforcement, but I think that's pretty funny. So, yeah, so that could be a huge motivator for some people. Um, okay, so yes, and obviously, with coaching, that is obviously like probably the fastest, most direct way to get support that's going to help you to reach your goal. So just recapping for a second, um, we want to set clear, aligned, smart goals in order to make sure that we put ourselves in the best position to actually make those come to fruition. You have to believe that you can achieve them. So you want to start out with just being aware of what that is for you, like what are the problems that you're having with your mindset, and then choosing a better thought. And that's how you can change your mindset and shift into a place where you are actually opening the door for more possibilities. Third is that you want to create that strategic plan. So that's about, again, brainstorming, prioritizing, using your calendar, self-care. And then finally, you want to execute your strategy even when things don't feel easy. And so I gave you guys some resilience tips. And also, again, I cannot stress enough how much accountability and support, getting help, can be essential. And then the final thing I just want to mention is, here's me and my daughter in a terrible picture at the Portland Rose Garden, which is a really famous rose garden. Don't forget to stop and smell the roses, because the whole point of this training, again, was not about, I want to hear from you on December 31st that you achieved all the goals that you set out to do. You need to make it happen. I want to hear from you on December 31st that regardless of whether you achieved those goals, you really had a great year, and that you wouldn't change anything, and that you feel like you did the best that you could, and that you really enjoyed your life and you lived according to your values. And I think that when you do that, you tend to achieve those goals. But again, this is not just about getting to destinations. It's about all the time and space that's in between and not missing these beautiful moments that we have. So, that's kind of a summary of where we're at. And okay, so Anne, yeah, I see you have your plan is like getting a rough draft of the book, sketching character illustrations, put 2 hours in for next Tuesday after family in town departs. Yeah. So, obviously you're going to want to expand that list to the extent possible, but that's a very good start. So, okay. So again, I had mentioned like at the beginning that I had a couple of like freebies that I wanted to offer people here. So I am going to be sending out an email that has like some additional exercises for each of these steps to kind of like help you along the way. So look out for that. And then I also sort of want to mention here another invitation, which is that I've taken you just now through 4 steps in like less than an hour. I'm like, what time is it right now? Yeah, it's been almost an hour. This is a lot. Okay. So yes, the freebies will come. Yes, you can watch this recording again. You can pause it, you can work on it. But here's the issue is that on the one hand, I've given you this method. And then on the other side of this bridge over here, you see the result that you get. Okay. And there's a couple of different types of people in between. So there's people who are going to take this presentation and be like, wow, that was incredibly overwhelming. I'm super stressed out. I just can't handle that. There's people who are like, this was a really good framework. I would really like to do this. I'm going to, do these exercises. I'm going to, get some of these other exercises going. And, I'm going to try to make this happen. And then what typically happens, and not across the board, some people can totally do that. But what sometimes can happen is along the way, you get into a place where you're like, well, how does that apply to my situation? Or, I have a question about this, right? So that's sort of like this customization piece here. So this is what I call the customization bridge. So the third type of person who's generally the most successful, right? And we mentioned accountability, is somebody who really kind of takes what I've given you and like goes all in. And those people are unstoppable in terms of achieving their results. So, there are many ways to go all in, but I think probably the best way, and this is my invitation to you today, is that if you don't want to get stuck on this bridge, I am going to be going on maternity leave in a month and I will be back in May. So for the month of February, the end of January through most of February, I'm not taking on any private clients right now, but I am offering 2-hour intensives. So if somebody wants to actually take this strategy and like formulate the full plan and like really get my feedback and my input and just do a crazy deep dive and just get complete clarity on the strategy, on the goals, on all of that, you can book a 2-hour intensive with me anytime in the next month, assuming I don't give birth early. So if that's something of interest to you, I will include this in the email that I sent out. I have a few spots open in the next few weeks, so definitely grab your spot. And that is it for now. So if you have questions, you can feel free to email me if you've watched the recording, or Anne, if you have any questions right now. I can also turn off the recording if you want to just like chat for a moment and why are we going that way? I see. Okay. Yeah, this is just my information if for some reason you're not on like my email list or something. So yeah, so that's it for now. I'm going to actually turn off the recording and if you have any other questions, we can chat about that right now. So hang on a second. Okay. How do I stop